It is ridiculous and it is against the laws of nature that we can have somebody sitting pretty who takes home more money than the credible entrepreneur who is doing actual production of goods and services.
We always say it as it is.
It is only in this country that when a thief is arrested, you hear elders from their tribe saying, he is our son and he is our thief.
If you are deviant and I call you leader, probably you are already a leader, but you are leading in the wrong direction.
We want to see the role of the youth in the security, governance, and development.
The youth that I meet and work with here, you know, we call them the millennials and X's and Y's, this and that. They don't necessarily want to live like their fathers and grandfathers, do business like their fathers and grandfathers. They're more independent, they're better educated, and they're the ones that are making everything move in this region.
We look at the issues, we talk about issues that impact people's lives in Africa.
The African peoples themselves continue to cheer bad leaders, and because they cheer them on, they continue to be misled.
Let me ask you, doctor, would you rather be somebody who does not enjoy so much freedom but you are rich? Or you'd rather be poor who you are actually imprisoned by the poverty itself?
My goal is not to come here and say, I want the majority ownership, I want to own this, I want to own that, I want to do this. My goal is we all make money and we're all happy, and I help build a big business here.
Punchline is for Africa, with Africa, from Africa.
Peace must be our goal and our guide. And all that we strive for as a human family, dignity and hope, progress and prosperity, depends on peace. But peace depends on us.
We discuss Africa. We see what ails Africa. And today, this afternoon, we want to see whether Sudan will permanently remain a sick child of Africa. Is it a permanent sickness? Can we resolve the issues of Southern Sudan? Is it something that has gone wrong for 200 years? There has always been a problem in Southern Sudan, in that great region, starting from all the way the Al-Mahdi wars and the rest of all what happened until today. Peace seems to be elusive. Why has UN taken slow action? Why hasn't UN set up a tribunal? We want to see a tribunal that will make sure that Southern Sudan people are accountable. Those who committed crimes against the human beings. 20,000 Sudanese perished. They are perished. They are not accountable for. Nobody can account for them. And we cannot sit here, go on hammering peace agreements without mechanisms of accountability. If we set a tribunal for Sierra Leone, for Rwanda, for Khmer Rouge, we need somebody to stand up for the poor masses, the masses that have died, the masses that continue to die, the masses that are being brutalized, murdered, maimed on a daily basis by marauding armies of both Riek Machar and Salva Kiir. There must be an accountability. You are not going to sit here and tell people there is no accountability in Southern Sudan. There must be a tribunal Why do we run to harass countries of Kenya? Put ICC on Kenya, put ICC on this country, put ICC on Central African Republic. Why have we delayed on putting a tribunal for Southern Sudan to find out who is killing, who has been killing, how they have been killing people? Let me speak for the people in Southern Sudan, the women, the children who have not gone to school, the children who have no medicine, the children who have nothing, who have been running since 2013, and the war cannot end because of two people. Let them face the tribunal. I'm not going to keep quiet as a Pan-African to see Southern Sudan being maimed, being tortured, being cut, dismembered, and we keep quiet and watch people got images of people, of malcontents singing to us in Uganda, in Kenya, in Ethiopia, in South Africa, telling us they have money. Let them face the international tribunal and tell the tribunal who gave them the guns, where they buying them, how they were killing people. Enough of is enough. Enough is enough for Africa. We have had enough. There is no need of that anymore. Enough is enough. And if people have died, they will not cry. We people who are left on planet Earth must cry for them. We must find justice for them. We must make sure that there are leaders who go on bragging on television stations all over the world, who are accountable. They must be behind bars.
You know, when one is asked to talk about leadership in Africa, one's mind wanders in many directions, because in the recent past, the continent of Africa has been the subject of scrutiny from many quarters. There are those who are Afro-pessimists and take the view that Africa will never realize our potential. There are those Afro-optimists who take the view that the jury is still out on the success or otherwise of the continent of Africa. I am an Afro-optimist. I take the view that this continent has had a glorious past, and that this continent has had her trials and tribulations, but her better days are in the future. There are those who, when talking about Africa, are in the habit of dealing with Africa as if it were one monolithic block. They do not recognize that the beauty of Africa is in her diversity. And indeed, when you care to undertake a geographical survey of Africa, you will be amazed at what the West of Africa offers, what the center of Africa offers, what the South of Africa offers, what the Horn of Africa offers, and what the North of Africa offers. That is the continent that we are talking about today. And we are talking about her because she continues in many ways to punch below her weight. And many are the commentators who take the view that the reason why she continues to punch below her weight is because the men and women who have had the privilege and honor to serve her in different political capacities or leadership capacities have not served her well. There may be merit in that assessment, but those who are quick to judge, those whose only claim to fame is that they are professional fault finders, must ask many questions before they judge and condemn Africa unfairly. this continent, and I remember, and if we are to judge this continent fairly, we must go back to the past and look to the past and ask about this continent. And there are many who have written about this continent. How many of you here will forget the great writings of Senegal's Anta Cheikh Diop, who has documented in many ways the glorious past of the continent of Africa, the great kingdoms in Africa. When Europe was still in the caves, Africans were building monuments. If they were not building them in the Ashanti Empire, they were building them in Monomotapa here in Zimbabwe. And there is a sense in which all those have been consigned to the Museum of History. And those who look at Africa see Africa as a scar on the conscience of humanity, not remembering that they were themselves co-authors of Africa's misfortunes. We are the only continent and the only people in the world who have been commodified. How many of you will remember that agrarian Europe had to commodify Africa in order to realize our level of development? At one time in those early days, we will remember, even as we talk about leadership, that half of the population of this continent was taken away. If they were not taken away from Ghana, which they then christened Gold Coast, they were taken away from Angola. If they were not taken away from Angola, they were taken away from Mozambique. If they were not taken from Mozambique, they were taken from Senegal. If the Arabs were not taking us, the Europeans were taking us. If the Europeans in their different tribes were not conquering us, they were stealing from us. Those are the realities that we don't talk about when we talk about this continent. And you know, if one cares to judge the African continent, one must be historically conscious. The oldest African country after we regained our independence from Greater Chief. And the question that we must ask ourselves, why is it that this continent finds ourselves in that space? If it is not Europe summoning us, it is the United States of America summoning us. Everybody is in the business of summoning us. One may ask, what has this to do with leadership? You know, I listened to the Chinese president speaking in eloquent Mandarin, saying how the relationship between Africa and China is a mutually beneficial relationship. He spoke about Africa as if it was one country. He did not remind himself, in my mind, that there are 55 countries in Africa, or 54 if you ask Morocco. And I listened to the Chinese president specifically mentioning the Gambia and a few words on Sao Tome and Principe, that they were welcomed back to the world because they had renounced their relationship with Taiwan and they had now recognized the one China policy. Do I say this because there is anything wrong with China? No. I'm saying this because the Chinese are providing leadership for their people. They know exactly what they want for their people, and they are doing exactly what they want for their people for the benefit of their people. The question that I'm posing to us, do we know what we want for our people? Are we doing what we need for our people? And the answer is, I doubt. Why do I doubt? I doubt because at the end of the entire enterprise, the Chinese president said that he had given, or his government had given, 60 billion United States dollars to 54 African countries. Notionally, therefore, each country would be entitled to no more than 1.5 billion. Half of the presidents who are present in China, each one of them, half of them, can produce 1.5 billion. Sportsmen in Europe and America, including boxers, can earn $1 billion in a single bout. And we are here celebrating and singing the praises of China because they gave us 60 billion. Once again, it is a statement of the ability to recognize what leadership is all about. I'm submitting to us that when we interact with people like the Chinese, there is something to learn from them. We may condemn them at forums such as this, but there is wisdom in asking ourselves, how is it that this country, which about 30 years ago could not feed half our population, has in 30 years during our lifetime succeeded in pulling up nearly 800 million people out of poverty? How is it that every road that is now being built in Africa, whether the road is in Benin, or in Nairobi, Kenya, or in Johannesburg, South Africa, or in Kigali, in Rwanda, or the Democratic Republic of Congo, there is a Chinese firm whose name I cannot pronounce as the contractor for that firm? How is it? How is it that China, which about 30 years ago did not produce a mobile phone, today, out of every 10 mobile phones, we are using 6 which are from China? If it is not Techno, it is some other phone. If we are not inviting Jack Ma, we are inviting another Chinese, because we have seen that they have the ability to organize their affairs. Some of us, particularly those of us who are in the middle class, our pride is that our child is learning Mandarin as a second language, not isiZulu, Mandarin. I fear, Bishop, that in the next few years, when they bring their children for baptism, and you ask them, how do you name this child? They'll say, Deng Xiaoping Simfiwe. I'm still talking about leadership. We have seen what leadership can do. Leadership has catapulted China to another completely different orbit. We have seen that leadership has catapulted South Korea to a different orbit. We have seen that leadership has catapulted Vietnam, which was bombed to the ground in 1975. Vietnam now produces more coffee than all African countries combined. What have they done? The men and women who have been given the opportunity to serve those countries long recognize that leadership is about service. And I can't agree more with the Honorable Minister who spoke before me and the good Dr. Aaron who spoke before me, that the true essence of leadership is self-discovery and self-esteem. You know, where I come from in my tribe, and I know in many African communities, when you do something very well, they say, you have done it like a white man. When you arrive on time, they say, he has arrived like a white man. When you speak well, they say, you spoke like a white man. When you dress well, you dress like a white man. When you go to a beautiful place in Africa, you say, it does not look like Africa, as if Africans are incapable of doing the right things. And I'm telling us that until the day that we exercise the ghost of low self-esteem, Africa is going nowhere. I'm submitting to us that history has demonstrated times without number that personal conquest is the beginning of true leadership. If you don't conquer yourself, you are going nowhere. And I'm submitting to us that Africa must now recognize that whatever institutions you have, until and unless it is populated by men and women who have ideals, those institutions will collapse, never to be put together again. So going forward, ladies and gentlemen, I hold the view that a conference such as this, that brings together men and women who recognize that Africa should occupy her pride of place amongst the Committee of Nations, must be a conference at which we speak to each other honestly. I think we Africans have been too kind to each other for too long. The time has come that we must annoy each other. It is only when we have annoyed you sufficiently that we can canalize that anger, and that anger can then be used to move mountains. And my joy is that Africa is not sleeping. My joy is that Africans are now beginning to wake up to the reality that we have not only the intellectual wherewithal, but that we have the resources to make our countries grow and grow in the proper direction. You know, not so long ago, and not so long ago in this case means about 50 years ago, I read and listened to the leaders of the early days. If you listen to any one of those leaders, the clarity with which they were able to identify the problems of Africa and the clarity with which they were able to prescribe the medicine that could solve the problems of Africa was as titillating as it was as astounding. You know, I listen to the more casual works and I read the casual works of a young leader in the 1980s, such as Thomas Sankara. You know, Thomas Sankara is a young individual whose claim to formal education was not very much. He did not hold any PhD. He was an army officer. He overthrows the government of Upper Volta, and he goes into government and poses the question, why are we called Upper Volta? And he says the first thing that we must do is to change the name of this country so that it becomes Burkina Faso, the land of the upright man, and that the people of this country must be called the Burkinabe, the upright people. And he says we have been suffering with hunger and food shortages for too long. We have depended on France for too long. We can no longer be children and toddlers in our adulthood. We cannot be in economic and political diapers for too long. And he begins to release the country. And no sooner has he succeeded in doing this than the erstwhile colonial power says that this is a bad example. And they eliminate him. And not only Thomas Sankara. I remember the man for whom I am named in 1961, Patrice Emery Lumumba, only aged 36, and he recognizes, and on that day of independence, not being scheduled to speak, he speaks nevertheless, and he says how happy he is that the history of the Congolese will be written by the Congolese, and they take him away. I listened to Ghana's Kwame Nkrumah saying that Africa cannot be free unless the whole of it is free. I look at the casual works of Bantu Stephen Biko. I listen to the casual works of Samora Moises Machel. I read the casual works of Modibo Keita in Mali. I look at the works of Agostino Neto, the works of Africans who are clear. And those of you who are alive, then you could see that the indices of development in Africa were moving up north. If it was not infant mortality that was beginning to be lowered, it was maternal mortality and crude death rates. Africa was moving. But remember that Charles Darwin is still right. In this jungle that we call the world is survival of the fittest and the dying of the least suitable. When we begin to rise as a people, there are those whose only claim to success is to put us down, to tell us, not in so many words, that we are children of a lesser God. It is our duty to tell them that we are not. And that is why we have forums such as this. You know, there are those who
Thank you very much. Good morning, viewers, wherever you are in Africa. Thank you very much. This is Punchline Africa TV, broadcasting from Nairobi together with Miriam Ogutu. We are today here to serve you. We've started this morning, very lovely morning in Nairobi. The weather is fantastic. It is the National or International Safety Day, Road Safety Day. So we expect people, wherever you are in Africa, to be driving very carefully in deserts, in valleys, in mountains, on roads. How many people die of accidents daily in Africa? Your station that sits, works, talks, defends this continent is here. This morning, we wanted to take a different version, a different style of doing things. Usually you see Kenya news, Africa, then the diaspora. From now, we shall now look at Kenya will be the biggest component, that is matters that come out of the Kenyan situation, the country where we are, and then look at Kenya across with what is happening, and then we go to international scene, because most of our customers on the satellite have said to me a feedback saying that they need that type of segments: African news, international news, Kenyan news. So we shall be doing that. Miriam will be concentrating on the African news to bring us and ask any questions. I will bring a general topic that touches the entire Africa. And then but we shall have a segment of about 1 hour, no, 45 minutes, with some adverts for the Kenyan scenario that is starting from next week. We shall be doing that, but we'll do a trial this week and see. Today's topic is a topic that touches the entire continent. Have things fallen apart in Africa? Have they fallen apart? Are things falling apart in every place in Africa where we are? Corruption, democracy, governance, economy, debt, conflicts, employment. I think those are the things that touch most Africans, Miriam.
Yes.
And most Africans, whether you are in Kenya, whether you are in South Africa, whether you are in Somalia, whether you are in South Sudan, whether you are in Khartoum, in Ethiopia, in Abuja, Nigeria, in Biafra, in Cameroon, conflicts touch you. Mm-hmm. Corruption touches everybody, everywhere. In DRC, Congo, in Kenya mostly, we shall touch on corruption in Kenya. This week we might have a breakthrough, a very nice breakthrough. And that is the time when my life will return after having a breakthrough. We have done our best. We have delivered our best for Africa. But this week on corruption, we might see some success. Mm-hmm. At least some 3 pharaohs will fall. That one I can assure you. The dams did not go for nothing. The money in the dams in Kenya did not go for nothing. Believe me or not, don't tell a lie. There is no way you can get an insurance certificate, then you go and knock the car deliberately and tell me that the insurance will pay you when you negligently knocked and killed the car or set a car on fire because you have got an insurance. Some people tell lies in Kenya. Oh, we have got a bank guarantee. Now, why are they charging this gentleman? 22 people will be charged. This is the headline on the Star.
Yes.
And there is evidence. 2 CSs will go down and another 20 people, 3 PS and another group of accountants and the managing directors. And then you tell us there was a bank guarantee. There's now enough evidence. I wrote yesterday on the dam when I finally got this and said, wow, this is something that we have been looking for. They are going to go down, defending someone, protecting some people. 2 pharaohs will go down. We have been looking for jesters and poets. This time we want the real people to go down so that the people of Kenya can know that corruption kills. Why do you jump into things all the time? You make yourself even so cheap. You know, I don't know. Cheapness, cheap. I was born in a very poor family, but I was taught manners. One of the manners that I've taught me is, Miriam, what has kept me to look like this? And when someone looks at you, say, oh, are you 40? Because of good manners, washing myself, not jumping, not doing this, not, jumping over food when people are eating. There are people here who are grown-ups, but they jump over food when others are eating. This is Africa. Has it fallen apart? Looking at the Kenya scenario, have we fallen apart? Miriam, you a Kenyan, I'm not a Kenyan. Mm-hmm. When I reach Uganda, talk about Uganda. And unfortunately, look at this. The headlines tell you, MPs look for more money from people. Yeah, then Ruto under fire over Waititu. Yeah. We have the Ruto under fire over the dams. He said that 7 million, the company that took the money has filed bankruptcy in Kenyan courts.
It has filed bankruptcy.
You saw that thing running.
Not just in Italy.
No.
In Kenya now.
It is a mafia company. Mm-hmm. You can't tell people, Kenyans, that this is a company you do business with. This is a company which is mafia that has taken other mafia places, several money from other people. Jermaine, we are in for trouble. And let's talk the truth. I wish this week they charge someone. Mm-hmm. At least charge some people, then we can rest. But these stories are too much. Africa is in chaos. Kenya, corruption. Kenya, in judiciary, we are done. The judiciary in disarray. Do you know that Deputy Chief Justice victimized one of my friends called Dr. Ojwang?
The one who was...
Yes, Dr. Ojwang, who is always on this panel. Mm-hmm.
The Dean of Law at
Nazareth University. He qualified, he went through the interview. This lady on the JSC, this month on the JSC, we even got the tape. The tape recordings of JSC when the woman was removing Ojwanga's name. That such a woman cannot be in this court. Because she hates that, she even saying that Matsanga and Dr. Ojwang are friends of dictators called Bashir. We were invited in Sudan, Khartoum. We didn't walk in there to address the chief justices of Africa. Madam Mwiru, if you want me also to say what you said in Khartoum, I'm now going to say it. Then we see who will have a more problem. Why do you victimize my friend for? He victimized my friend. That means if you go to that court, this woman can even tell you, take you under slaughter. What is it that she wants from us?
So she has a problem with you being a friend to Bashir, you and...
Yes, but yet we are all invited by Bashir. My friend Ojwang was supposed to be a judge. A judge, he had qualified, he has all the, Dr. Ojwang, he has all the qualification. That woman in the JSU, we have recorded her. Recordings, tape recordings. Usicheze na Matsanga. Now hiyo case kubwa sana. Such a person cannot be in that court. If Uhuru Kenyatta wants a legacy, cannot have a legacy with that lady in that court. The legacy is gone. She has brought Maraga's court into chaos. Jermaine, my friend has just called me this morning crying that we made a mistake even to go and to know this lady in Khartoum. Why did we? We were all invited to address a conference. Is there a problem? The words that she said there, I don't want to tell Kenyans now because it could be a big war. So Africa, if you look at all these events, Ruto under fire over Waititu, DCI wants 22 charges, corruption.
I think this is a good headline this morning. I hope.
Yeah, we are not vigilantes.
Yes.
You can call us anything. Like me, don't call me a vigilante. Because I'm educated. I failed so bad. But the president is my friend. So there's nothing wrong. A friend can even at times joke. That's okay. But at least vigilantes, we have got some 2 people, 2 CS,
yes,
and 3 PS to go down. They will go down, I'm telling you.
Okay, so yesterday we were wondering what the DCI...
I'm not wondering. I received the news.
It's been very quiet, so...
Yeah, I received... Exactly, in the afternoon, Miriam.
The headlines really are very encouraging, so he's been working, so hopefully these people will go through the process of the whole judicial process and they'll be found culpable. I'm sure, I hope they have a
first they resign.
Case for them. Oh, yeah, what the president said.
Resign.
Once you've been taken to court, now you need
this week, tunataka. Wende. Resign, give space for other Kenyans to work, isn't it?
Because that is what the president said. Once
yes.
in arranged.
Let's see, I hope you will not change. You are saying, everybody, they have, you know, the president has to do something to get his name working. We have defended him. I have. And I will continue to defend Uhuru, whether I'm here or not here, or in London, or Washington, or on a tree, or in a river, or in air, or anywhere, except in the grave I can't defend.
Okay.
But I will defend Uhuru Muigai Kenyatta. He doesn't give me money at all, but I will defend him because I see a star, a Pan-African star. I see it. Go ahead.
All right, so viewers, thank you so much. Keep writing to us, and I will go through some of your messages. Thank you for tuning in this morning. Kwe Emmanuel Chair, you're saying, good morning, Dr. Matanga, and Miss Miriam Agut. I'm watching you from Ground Zero, Southern Cameroon, that is Ambazonia, and corruption in Africa will never end. It is something we inherited from our forefathers when they are selling us as slaves to the white man. So apparently corruption is something that we inherited from our forefathers. Some of them even,
Fred is not there.
Yes, so we want to thank you this morning. Keep writing to us, Kwe Emmanuel Chair and the rest of you. And of course, today the topic that we're looking at have things fallen apart in Africa? And we're looking at corruption, democracy, governance, economy, conflicts, and employment. And Dr. Matanga, when I look at all the topics that we're going to talk about today in regards to how they have been in Africa and how lack of some of those things, structures in Africa, has gotten us where we are today. When you look at all of that, the result of corruption, democracy, governance, economic and employment, and of course the debt, the result of proper structures to take care of that, I think is what plunges us into conflict.
Institutions, we have destroyed it. Now, if you look at all these topics, because Miriam, I have been summoned for a meeting, I will have to leave you to struggle with the topic.
Yes.
And then we maybe extend it later on in the afternoon. But if you look at all these countries, from Kenya, Democratic Republic of Congo, Burundi, Nigeria, South Sudan, Sudan, Egypt, Uganda, Cote d'Ivoire, Burkina Faso, Cameroon, and then the worst one is Eritrea. Then Somalia. Look at those countries. There is a common denominator in them. The common is the likelihood of conflict. There is one thing that always will end to a conflict. All these countries you see, Egypt is not stable. They change the constitution, extend the constitution. The man has to rule until God calls him. That's a conflict. Côte d'Ivoire, that's a conflict already. Look at Babugo is returning, Ouattara is panicking, a conflict. Burkina Faso, government overthrown, changes itself, conflict. Cameroon, Biya is killing his people, eating them, slaughtering them, boiling them and eat, and call for meat in order to survive his disease that has put him on a wheelchair. Conflict. Benin, you saw the opposition rejecting elections. Conflict.
Actually calling for a new election.
South Sudan, even when the Pope has kissed their legs and their feet, they still came back to fight. Conflict. You see, Riaka does not want to come. The other one says, yes, there is no money to form a new government. A conflict. Look at Burundi. The president cannot travel out of Burundi, Bujumbura, because he fears Kagame will overthrow him. And Kagame also says, you want to overthrow me. So a conflict is happening. Look at Zimbabwe. The opposition is already standing up, calling on the masses to come on the streets of Zimbabwe to go and remove Mnangagwa. Conflict. Look at Nigeria. Buhari is helping the Boko Haram to kill Nigerians and slaughter them. Is a conflict. That's a straightforward conflict that is on Africa. Corruption, bad governance, economy is very bad. Nigeria produces fuel, oil, but it has no fuel in the petrol station. Conflict. Look at that. Employment rates in all Kenya here. The men coming, graduating from the university, no jobs. We are hitting people on the streets of Nairobi. It's a conflict, a potential. Look at that. Go to Uganda. 3/4 of the younger men have nothing to do except to look at the big cars in Kampala, how Museveni's people zoom the cars, how they drive, how the men who came with 10 points program to rescue a country have turned into the mafia dome of destroying the country. Conflict. Hello. Look at Democratic Republic of Congo, a country with minerals, a country given minerals by God. What has happened? Kabila exports diamonds every day with the sister. They are richer than Congo itself. They can lend Congo money. While Congolese government is always on plane looking for money, yet Kabila and the sister can lend the money. Conflict. Tell me. Which country have I? Look at everywhere.
Yes.
Every place. Somalia. The terrorists are known. We have tried to pacify Somalia. What has caused the problem? Corruption, democracy, lacking of it, governance, bad economy. The government in Mogadishu itself is corrupt.
Yes, and of course, according to the Transparency International report earlier this year, at the very bottom of the index for the 7th year in a row, Somalia scores 10 points, followed by South Sudan, which is 13, to round out the lowest scores in the region in terms of corruption. So Somalia, followed by South Sudan, are the most corrupt countries in the world.
Exactly. In South Sudan, look. What is there? There's plenty of corruption. Salva Kiir and Riek Machar hammer each other. What caused the conflict? Corruption. Salva Kiir wanted Riek out of the way. Actually, he wanted to kill him until Riek escaped. Then all of them explained to us how they were all armed, ready to kill each other. You saw on the national TV in Kenya, corruption. It takes us to the center stage. In every country in Africa, this topic has Africa falling apart. Yes, it's falling apart. Debt. Let's look at the debt. There is no African country that has no debt. That in debt is worse. We are accumulating debt every day, every angle, every child. Children are going to pay debts. The generations coming will pay debts. Corruption has brought us to where we are, not because we don't have the goods, we have the minerals, we have everything, the good weather, the good climate, the rainfall. Some parts in the world don't have rainfall. Israel has no rainfall.
Yes.
Israel makes its own water and rainfall from God. There's sometimes God helps them.
Yes.
The clouds, you know, the cloud rainfall.
Yes.
It comes, but Israel even lends us money. Yet we in Africa are able to lend Israel money if we did not become corrupt.
So whose responsibility
Leaders.
would you say to fight
Leaders.
corruption?
Look at the one in our country here, Kenya, where we are. Before you even investigate a person, someone in executive has come to say, don't try.
But let's just start with the president himself.
Don't try.
When you remove somebody from one post because he's been corrupt, but you still give him a job somewhere else and he's still corrupt, what is that?
That is
and then
very
out
serious.
there you're going there to say, let's fight corruption.
Yes, Wario.
Yes.
Wario took people.
Obeah.
Wario took ugly women to. Sorry, whenever I touch ugly women, because I have a beautiful woman on the show. Yes, of course, I have to give you credit.
Okay, I'll take that.
Yes,
All right.
I have a beautiful lady. The hairstyle is marvelous. So you can't take a person called. Sorry, I have my beautiful wife, and Mrs. Miriam Ogutu is on her own.
Yes.
But I'm using it as a very good example.
The corruption.
Wario
Yes.
took women. Let's not now describe whether they're ugly or not.
Yes.
But took women from Kenya to go and witness Olympics. In Brazil, Brazil produces one of the best crops of ladies
The world.
in the world. Yes. You can't go to a restaurant, a nightclub in Brazil to dance, and you don't dance unless you are useless.
The
You
music,
have to dance.
The samba music is wonderful.
Samba,
Yes.
salsa, and the ladies are, my God. So, Mr. Wario, why did you carry women here and left a runner who is the world javelin champion?
As an athlete, yes.
The man paid his own money.
To go to Rio.
Jermaine Kenyans,
Yes.
listen to me. The man paid his own money from his own savings to go and throw a javelin for Kenya. Oh, Wagwan.
And he was indicted for that.
Yes, and then we promoted him
Not we
to
promoted.
go to,
Not we promoted. The president.
of course, the country,
The president promoted him
to go to Austria.
to be our ambassador. What a shame.
Surely?
So that defeats I think that's why even some of the leaders in the president's corner are now just practicing corruption with impunity. They're like, okay, now if the leadership is not...
Let me, as I live, you are a governor of a county. When you carry documents from your office with a helicopter up to Nairobi, don't you first ask your secretariat and your cabinet, let's look at what I'm going to be asked tomorrow. Yes, the Auditor General might have made a mistake. Yes, the auditor mix-up might be there. But you as a competent governor, don't you sit down and look at every stage of what you are carrying and what you are going to be interviewed on? That's the only question. I don't care about the rest of whether money was lost or given to who. Mine is the competency.
Yes.
One of the things that has made me clash with Maraga is incompetence. Now he has started working too slow. Maraga was very incompetent and very incompetent. He doesn't know what goes on in the court. When you see an advocate, Mr. Ojenda, arguing on television that he is the one suitable, even changes the rules for Ojenda. Ojenda will be elected. But he will be stopped by the new law that's coming from cabinet, from parliament. I'm telling you.
On corruption.
Yes, because he has bought every Luo leader, lawyer.
He has?
Yes.
And Luo,
yes. Yeah. You know, the Luo community are the biggest lawyers.
Good brains.
Good brains, yes, of course, including David Nyakorach. You've forgotten the name. Why are you? I also come from the Luo community.
Since when?
You didn't know.
Okay.
You haven't known my name.
Ethnicities, corruptions. Let's just move forward.
That name is very special, by the way. You will not know it. You will like it.
Nyakorach.
Yes. Sina fitina. I don't have any problem with anybody.
All right.
So, as a person, you know, LSK is full of a community. Believe me or not. They might select Ogenda, but Ogenda himself should look at his heart. Is he worth it? I am in a scandal. I go and stand for the place again. What is he fighting to get in JSC? To block, to do. Corruption does not mean money is being carried. No. Influence. If you tell the judge that, hello, that is my case and my brother, take it this way, it will go. Hello?
Yeah, and we saw a lot of leaders from Kiambu County yesterday coming out very strongly to attack their governor, including his assistant governor, his vice governor.
Yes, and his vice governor comes on the TV this morning.
And also attacking
the governor.
Vice president and telling him,
yes,
why are you so much into our business?
Yes, on this one, the deputy president should have not, he's a leader.
He's a national leader.
His Excellency, the deputy president of Republic of Kenya, is a leader.
Did he jump the gun too
much?
The same way he did.
This time tell him too much. Okay. I am saying it. If he has a problem with me, fine. I will leave. But I'm saying it. It is too much. Let investigators do it. Let investigators do it. He's a leader. Okay, imagine they find Mr. Waititu, Kalipepo.
Yes.
What do you do?
The way they found this.
Now they have found the damn money was missing. What do you do? Do you eat your words?
No, we don't.
So a leader, you stand above all this.
Yes.
And leave the thing go. Even you call Waititu quietly and say, my friend, what happened? But you don't go publicly.
Public and make
you are also killing. You see, the DP is killing his politics. By 2022, if he goes the way, if strategists don't change his strategy, he might not have a supporter. I'm telling you now, truly, in the name of God, I have done political science, and the way things are going in that camp, if you go and have people insulting people, you get a group of people on social media changing this, insulting everybody who talks about different things. You are spoiling your own avenues.
Forget even spoiling his own avenues. The statements are being made with such impunity. You listen and you wonder, what is
rules of 48 rules.
48 rules of power.
Power. Never outshine your boss.
Your master.
Yes.
Like 10 times.
There are so many things that are happening here. Mimi, I don't have time. When you call the
but when he talks,
people,
it sounds like he's the master.
Yes,
the vice president, he talks with a lot of authority.
Yes.
I think
so now what we do, because I'll try to ring, but when I try to ring, the man who doesn't like me is the one who picks the phone. So you'll see my name.
Which one?
I won't tell you. There's a man there who doesn't like me.
You have enemies.
But very many.
Okay.
You think ICC did not produce enemies for me?
But you did not procure anything.
I did not they procured the witnesses.
Procure, yes.
Yes, but me, no. I exposed them.
Yes.
And I helped the two gentlemen. I did my job. In fact, when you talk about that, my heart is so happy that they are here free. But the men who wanted and the women who wanted to fix them are the ones enjoying the money. Not me. Not me. those who went outside buying witnesses, usilete hiyo kitu sahi. Usilete, Miriam, don't bring it.
Okay, let me leave it alone.
It can make me cry. And people who bought witnesses,
yes,
and went to national TV, said we bought witnesses for 2,000 shillings.
They confessed even.
Yes, they are the ones who have been given money and enjoyed suits. They used to wear one suit for 200 days.
Then Bensouda still has some work to do, I'm sure.
Oh,
And when you see something like a senior State House official ask Kinoti to delay suspect's arrest, I'd be interested to see who this person is. I think in regards to the dam scandal, so far, 2 CSS and 3 PSS among other people, police want arraigned over. So what I'm hoping is that the DCI...
Who is delaying now again? Wanataka kuleta this time hao watakuwa wenyewe peke yao.
The man above.
No, watakuwa wenyewe.
Yes.
We have, you see, I told you, the other weekend,
yes,
the graders were doing a job. They collected graders even as far as Uganda to come and show there is something working on Eroro and Kemeroro. I told you.
Yes.
To show the president that you said there was no money, there was money stolen, but the graders are digging. They are too clever.
You think they're clever?
Now they have, another man who has come back?
Yes.
In the scene is called Moha. I will tell you the story offline.
Moha, the former journalist.
Hey.
He's been very quiet. Has he been investigating?
Intelligence we have things that have come from there.
Yes.
What? Yeah. Just to touch people's names. Unaona?
Yes. And I know you want to
rush. We picked that already.
You want to rush to a meeting. I can see you're almost on your way out.
Yeah, I have.
Yes, but part of the headline here, Bobby Wine seems to have overtaken Besigye.
Of course.
Yes. It is working.
He's listening. My medicine?
Not medicine.
Which one?
The publicity and the martyrdom.
Yes. Martyrdom. Yes, I told you. I told you.
So
I told the President Museveni. So the government in fact, today afternoon or tomorrow morning, I'm looking for you. I'll call. Leave the other number open.
He gave you 8. You can try.
Yeah, no, I got him on 1.
Oh, you did.
Now, this morning I've just tried. They are all working. It means he has come back in the capital.
From the farm.
Okay. I told the president, get this man and we talk. You talk to him. You're a father. Don't allow him politics of martyrdom. You will see. The percentage is rising.
Yes. Because...
the more you beat him, the more votes he gets.
So yes, and according to a new poll, should the Ugandans go to the elections today, President Museveni will garner 32% of the votes, followed by Bobby at 22% and Besigye at 13%. So
if Besigye and Bob unite, kwisha.
Yes.
Kwisha. Watu wamekasirika. You know, people can love you, but there's a time when they hate you, they hate you.
Yes, there's a limit.
Yes.
When you push.
Usipige huyu mtu, especially that population. Out of the 19 or 10 million voters, Ugandans, or 12. 7 million or 5 million are Baganda.
Okay.
So you tell me. Nakuachia hapo.
Okay.
And then you beat their person in the front, they are watching like this.
So President needs to tread very
I always tell the truth.
Yes.
Mr. President knows I studied political science. One step forward ahead of him. Yes, because he stopped on one level. I hope he has gone on a second one.
He's enjoying it.
So tools of analysis, strategy are with me. That's why I challenged Professor Twido, his friend in the London School of Oriental and African Studies. He failed me. The first round failed. I went back. I said I will conquer you. I came back. I defended my position on the 14 chairs. I got it. Twitter floored me because I wrote the book Democracy in Uganda, is it a myth or reality?
That was your thing.
Oh, that's the problem I got. Hiyo ndio kisirani nilikuwa nayo. This man is a great friend of the president. He's the one who wrote the book, The Sowing of the Mustard Seed. So here, Bob Wine, that's why the topic of today, I wanted us just to chat. You see, it is very good. It fits here. What is causing the percentage to rise in Uganda? Corruption.
So by the time we go to 2021 election,
Takuwa moto. Matsanga has not put his card in, man.
You want to put your card in?
Don't worry.
Okay.
You keep your cards close to the chest.
All right.
No, I think the politics is not leveled.
It's not level.
Therefore,
there's no level play.
No. No.
And you can see majority of them are the younger generation, of course.
Yes, it's not it. I can be an adversary role. In fact, the best position is the Minister of Foreign Affairs. You know, Uganda's Minister of Foreign Affairs might not travel to US.
No, he can't. He's
yes, so
looking for him.
Your Excellency, I'm applying. Application. Yes, I can do everything. Let me also, surely give me something. I can do this thing very properly. Travel everywhere.
I'm sure he's listening.
Yes, he listens and his people. The minister soon cannot go to the General Assembly.
Yes, no, he can't.
Yeah, they are waiting.
They're looking for him, and they
are waiting there.
They will just.
So give it to me.
They'll arrest him. Yes.
I have the qualities. All the documents. You look at them. I have the qualities.
You'll not go fighting France.
No, France. I will block them.
That's the problem. Because now you have to be.
Anything to do with France.
You have to be diplomatic.
No, there's no diplomacy there. Let me remain like that.
Foreign Affairs Minister.
Let me remain like that.
That is the basic requirement.
Listen to me, my sister. France, the French.
You have to smile to.
Have you seen what they have done in Libya? You seen what they have done in Libya? And you say Matsanga is wrong?
And I'm just saying, if they gave you the Ministry of Foreign Affairs,
I have to be diplomatic.
You'll be required.
I wouldn't visit France.
So that's why now.
I'm sorry. That's why the president will never give me.
Now you're missing out on the.
Yes, let me miss out and remain an African activist. Yes. I just want to campaign for President Museveni to become for East Africa to integrate. Sababu Tanzania mnajulikana. Kiswahili yangu ya Tanzania iko sanifu sana. Tunaweza kuzungumza Kiswahili huko Morogoro, Mtwara, wapi, kila pale Bagamoyo.
Mtwapa ni Mombasa bana.
Mtwara hapana Mtapa.
Mtwapa ni Mombasa.
Mtwara. Sawa. Hapa Kenya kura tutachukua kura hapa. Tutapatiwa kura. Sababu there is the East African Federation coming. You need a man like Matsanga to run around these regions. He's likable. Unaona? I'm also having plans.
Okay. I see that now the card from the chest is slowly being
so that you don't fall a victim.
Thing. Yes.
And that's why I'm advising the president not to allow this thing of term limit. It can age limit can overdo his votes. So this couple, the boy who has run to East African Court of Justice could bring it. You know, people are not seeing it. It might not overrun the national, but you have set up the East Africa and assigned it. It backfires on you. Thank you very much, viewers. Today was going to be hot, but unfortunately I have got an emergency where I have to go to attend to. Then come back, we shall finish up. I leave Miriam on the saddle while you saddle.
I saddle.
By the rivers of Babylon.
Oh no, just here. I will be taking you through
across the bridge?
Not across. That's for you. I'm just doing fine over here on the mountain top.
Mountain top talking about employment, conflicts, economy, governance, democracy, corruption.
Yes.
Has Africa fallen apart?
Has Africa fallen apart? And maybe this is a subject that we'll have to look at, maybe even tomorrow in
this week. Let's look at it.
Let's look at it.
Let's pick each component
in depth, yes,
and discuss in each country. If you want your country to be discussed, please write back to Miriam or to us. Indicate here.
Just yes, on the comment section, and we'll be happy to get some details and talk about it. We are all-round channel, and Africa is our business. So we are going to take a very short break, and when I come back, Dr. Matanga is excusing himself. I'll be giving you the latest in what is happening in Africa this afternoon.
And I can say we are now, with any partnership with our Punchline, another Pan-African station called South Cameroon Broadcasting Corporation, turns 2 years on our satellite. And you can see those viewing us on the satellite system from Germany. We are tuko sawa sawa. I don't know, sawa sawa means we are all right, stable. When it is raining or whatever, our satellite does not shake. It brings you the right pictures. And thank you very much. Enjoy. Some television stations are having a problem when it rains, as if you are dancing some other music. Freeze. So we have those problems. I want to thank you for giving us support. For us, we are 3 years old now, and we have made a contribution to the country, to the countries in Africa, and we shall prosper. We continue to make any developments that can come.
Okay.
Thank you.
Indeed. I'll see you after the break.
Yeah.
We call for a non-violent revolution. We call for a non-violent protest. We call for a non-violent march. This is what we are demonstrating to the world, and we have resisted Mr. Biya's army of occupation in our land, but this is a moment that we must continue to stand firm.
Of this nation.
Along with many other Cameroonians, many of you, as far back as the early 90s, and more frequently lately, I have insisted upon the imperative nature of genuine dialogue. Unfortunately, the government's solution has been cosmetic reforms and repression. Teachers, lawyers who raised legitimate concerns were either arrested or forced into exile. Doctors, important people in our society who asked for genuine dialogue, were met with punitive transfers and humiliation. It is regrettable that the government hasn't learned from the past.
We are ambassadors. We don't need anything again. The only solution to the matter is let the government solve this problem by giving our independent freedom.
We have a territory of our own. We recognize international boundaries. We have a language. We have a culture. We have our own laws. We have everything that is required by international standards to be a people and a nation and a state. The UN must give us this right.
We as a people, we have the right to self-determination, and we are determined to go our separate ways.
The people of the Southern Cameroons have suffered under the brutal regime of the annexationists, La République du Cameroun. We have suffered for 56 years, and we finally decided that enough is enough.
I think dialogue is the main solution, because the use of military has never been a solution to a problem concerning this kind of issues. So the government of Cameroon has to dialogue with the Anglophone regions to come to a compromise and let this problem be solved.
Now, we want to inform the whole world that the Southern Cameroonian prisoners of conscience in the jails of Yaoundé are on the second day of their declared hunger strike. Now, we want the entire world to know, because we are convinced that the regime in Yaoundé will be indifferent until they begin to die. While we encourage our brothers in this process, we also call on Southern Cameroonians to join them in a fasting so that the whole world may know that we are a determined people.
Self-determination cannot be effective without self-defense. We are opposed to violence. We are opposed to war. But if La République, if the UN should continue to dilly-dally as they are doing, and La République comes now to attack our people, they are forced, they are bound by the law of nature to defend themselves.
Glory, we the Amazonians pledge our loyalty.
Welcome back. I am Miriam Ogutu, and this is Good Morning Africa. Just a few minutes past midday, about 12 minutes past midday East African time. Thank you so much for joining us. In the first half of the show, we've been looking at how things fallen apart in Africa in regards to corruption, democracy, governance, economy, conflict, employment, as well as debt, and how this really is impacting in some of African countries that we've been able to look at together with Dr. Matanga. He just excused himself. He had something urgent to take care of, but I'll take you through the remainder of the show. And of course, just in line with that, corruption being one of the many vices that is actually killing Africa and its economy. This year's Corruption Perceptions Index, according to Transparency International report, presents a largely gloomy picture for Africa. Only 8 out of 49 countries score more than 43 out of 100 on the index. And despite commitments from African leaders declaring 2018, that was last year, as Africa's year of anti-corruption, this has yet to translate into a concrete progress. And also very interesting, Seychelles scores 66 out of 100. So actually in 2019, it is the leading country in Africa in terms of fighting corruption. And Seychelles also is followed by Botswana and Cape Verde, which scores 61 and 57 respectively. And at the very bottom of the index for the 7th year in a row is Somalia, that scores 10 points, followed by South Sudan, which scores 13 points to round out the lowest scores in the region. So, you know, and the rest of African countries fall in between there. So that means we are doing very poorly when it comes to the fight against corruption. We see these African leaders meeting these corruption bodies having been founded in different African countries. But are they really able to do the job of fighting against corruptions? And the policies that are being formulated, are they being implemented? Because they can just do the talk, but are they actually walking the walk when it comes to the fight against corruption? So thank you so much. And that is just what we've been looking at in the first hour of our show this morning. And of course, governance being a very big thing, and improved governance, which appears to be the common denominator, especially when donors are looking to come and fund some of these projects that require them to do. So they try to look at governance and the structures of governance of these different African countries. And according to World Bank defines governance as the manner in which power is exercised in the management of a country's economic and social resources for development. So if you were to just take that description of governance by the World Bank, then that would, in a nutshell, you'll have a picture on how Africa really is performing in terms of a management of the economic resources and, of course, social resources in these different African countries. Our leadership has not been doing very well when it comes to that. So that is just that, just a recap of what we've been talking about in the first hour of the show. But right now, I would like us to look at the news that is making headline this afternoon from different African countries. And Innocent Chigbo, you're saying good morning. Dr. Matanga and the TV crew, you're watching us from Germany. Indeed, good morning to you. And which part of Germany are you watching us from? Please, our viewers, even as you continue to watch us, it is always a pleasure to know where you're watching us from. So thank you so much even for tuning in. And we start with Algeria, where Algerian police have arrested former President Abdelaziz Bouteflika's younger brother, alongside 2 former intelligence chiefs, according to local media, said Bouteflika, General Bashir Athmane Tartag, and General Mohamed Bedien were taken into custody for questioning on Saturday, the private and Nahar TV has reported. We go to Benin, where the body of a tour guide has been found in a national park in Benin, while 2 French tourists who were with him are still missing. The government has said another group disappeared in Pendjari National Park on Wednesday. The park is on the border with Burkina Faso, where Islamist militants have been increasingly active in recent months. And in Nigeria, President Muhammadu Buhari, who is 76, has returned home after a 10-day private visit to the United Kingdom, confounding critics who claimed he had gone for medical reasons and would stay longer. Presidential spokesperson Femi Adenese has confirmed. And we move to Libya, where Libyan militia leader Khalifa Haftar has issued a message urging his forces to step up the offensive against the capital Tripoli, hours after the United Nations called for a ceasefire. The United Nations appealed for a humanitarian truce to coincide with the start of the Muslim holy month of Ramadan, which starts today. But General Haftar called on his supporters to increase the determination and strengthen of the assault. And in South Sudan, ruling and opposition parties agreed on Friday to give themselves 6 more months to form a unity government as part of a peace deal that was signed in September, the regional group IGAD has confirmed in a statement. And in Rwanda, the remains of nearly 85,000 people murdered in Rwanda's genocide were laid to rest on Saturday in a somber ceremony in Kigali, a quarter of a century after the massacre. Mourners sobbed as 81 white coffins containing the remains of 84,437 victims of the 1994 mass killings were buried at the Nyanza Genocide Memorial in the capital in Rwanda. In Kigali. And in Sudan, Sudanese mediators facilitating talks between the army rulers and protest leaders have proposed the country have 2 transition councils, with one led by generals overseeing security, a protest leader said yesterday. The mediators' apparent proposal comes as talks over forming an overall governing council remain deadlocked, with existing military council and protest leaders offering differing visions after President Omar al-Bashir was disposed last month. And we move to Senegal, where now Senegalese lawmakers on Saturday approved a constitutional reform to scrape the post of Prime Minister, the first initiative of President Macky Sall's second term in office. The motion passed with 124 members of parliament voting in favor and only 7 against. National Assembly President Mustafa Nice said on Saturday evening after a 9-hour debate. The government approved the measure last month before sending it to the parliament, where the presidential party enjoys a majority. And in South Africa, the leader of South Africa's main opposition party is now urging voters to give change a chance. In next week, India is gearing in for elections on 8th. That, I think, is on Wednesday. And the DA is the main opposition party in South Africa, and they ended, I think, their rallies over the weekend. And in Ethiopia, there have been some skirmishes in the Afar and Somali regions. Ruling parties have in the last 3 days engaged in actions that, according to security and political watchers, are disturbing. And this is according to a report by Human Rights Watch in Ethiopia. And in Cameroon, the escalating Anglophone crisis that has paralyzed the northwest and southwest regions of Cameroon will come up at the United Nations Security Council on May 13th for the first time, reports have indicated. This follows calls from the European Union Parliament on April 26 for the United Nations Security Council to table the matter for discussions as the situation continues to worsen. And in Burundi, Burundian President Pierre Nkurunziza lauded his 12-year-old daughter and gave her money at a May Day ceremony designed to honor the country's top workers. The head of state is said to have given an envelope of money to his daughter, Naomi Nkurunziza, who has been behaving well at home. State broadcaster RTNB said in an overnight tweet, without specifying the amount of money the president gave his 12-year-old daughter. And in Tanzania, an outspoken critic of Tanzania President John Magufuli is missing after being snatched off the road by armed men in the country's far south, the main opposition party confirmed on Sunday. 4 men wielding guns abducted Mdude Nyagali, a high-profile dissident and opposition activist, as he left his workplace in Bozi on Saturday evening, the Chadema party said in a statement. And Nigerians, of course, over yesterday, they celebrated the memory of the former president, Umaru Musa Yar'Adua, who died in office about 9 years ago. Of course, at that time, the president was his vice president, who also became his successor, Goodluck Jonathan, I think, succeeded him after that. And Yar'Adua is considered to be one of the most, likable presidents in Nigeria. And of course, he died in office 9 years ago, and he succeeded Olusegun Obasanjo in a very controversial elections. And then, of course, he died after 3 years in office. So yesterday, Nigerians were remembering him. They are celebrating his memory yesterday. And died 3 years into power, and his vice president, Jonathan Goodluck, finished the term and then ran for an election which he won, but later on in his second term he lost to now sitting president Muhammadu Buhari, who is also facing his own challenges right now. Even after the elections that happened on 23rd of February, of course, the opposition leader Atiku Abubakar went to court to challenge the results, and of course the case is still in court. So President Buhari has not been sworn in for his second term in office, even after the elections in February. So there's not much on what is happening in that petition, but as soon as we get any more details, of course, we will update you in. So former President Yar'Adua died 9 years ago. That was yesterday. So they were celebrating his memory. So now, of course, Algeria, it has its own problems. And over the weekend, they went for President Abdelaziz Bouteflika's younger brother and other intelligence chiefs from Bouteflika's former president. And it seems as though corruption was embedded in Algeria, and they've been going after the top people who are surrounding Mr. Bouteflika. We've seen about 2 weeks ago, they went for 5 billionaires in Algeria. They've been going for the army chief. They've gone for very different people who are very strong men during President Abdelaziz Bouteflika's reign. And now over the weekend, they went for his younger brother alongside former intelligence chiefs. And his name is Said Bouteflika, that is the younger brother of former President Abdelaziz Bouteflika, and they're being questioned over corruption. So as I've mentioned before, and I think this is something we've been talking about, this is one of the vices that is actually killing Africa and is bringing the economy of all the African countries, a lot of them, to its knees, because money and there's been wastage even in government, and that even threatens the stability of a lot of African countries, because when you look at corruption and how much it is contributing to joblessness, how much it's contributing to poor health, how much it's contributing to poor economies and poor governance and things like this, the result of that is conflict. And so that has been a big contributor and a driving factor at the conflicts that we see today in Africa. So we thank you so much for joining us. And I can see, let me just read a few of your comments here. Please keep writing to me, and I'll respond to them and read them out as we continue. And should there be any news out there from across Africa or indeed the world that you feel we should talk about, please be free and engage with me this afternoon. I remember yesterday there's something that happened in Russia. I think there was an accident. A passenger plane crash landed at the airport. It was coming from Russia's capital, Moscow, to another airport I can't pronounce. It's in Russian, and it crash landed. And it is said that 41 people died. A few others were able to slide out of the plane. It was live. I was watching it. So unbelievable. Just a few minutes past 7 p.m. And so that is also another disaster that happened. And also on Saturday, another Boeing 737 crash landed on water, just skidded off the runway to a river in Miami, Florida. The Boeing 737. Now, that should raise alarm. If it's not enough, it's just a few months ago that a very fatal accident happened, a plane crash in Ethiopia that claimed about 159 lives. And now you hear stories like that. I think it's worrying. So Nong Chu, you're saying it's a plane built in Russia. Yes, indeed. Bensong Manfred, you're saying Africa has a big problem. Why should a man fighting reshape Tanzania developments be adopted? Could you please expound on that? I think I'm not exactly understanding what you're saying, but thank you. Please expound on that, Bensong Manfred. And Abduli Koli, you're saying, good morning, Dr. Matanga. Our African corruption never ends because all our African leaders are 6 and 9. They never care about their citizens. 6 and 9. Okay. Mpe Alphonse, you're saying you're watching from southern Cameroon in Ambazonia. Indeed, thank you so much. And Besong, you're watching from Dubai, and the rest of you, wherever you're watching us from. So I was just going through some stories making headlines this morning in Africa. Ombesh Arthur, you're saying, why does slavery exist most, and where will it end? Good question. And in the recent past, there has been questions being asked about African sovereignty, how much, we are still very overly dependent in the West. And there has been questions being raised of, are we being recolonized? And I think this is a subject that we have explored here. I think just a few days ago, last week and the other week, we tried to look into that. Because when you see how much, especially our leaders, go out there and claim sovereignty when it suits them, but half the time we are out there looking for help from the West, and we're inviting them in our democracy, we're inviting them in our economy, because we really basically can't manage our own affairs. So in that case, we give them the power and the voice to come and help us run our affairs here in Africa. It's a very troubling situation, so that, we're wondering, is it a modern day slavery? Is it a recolonization? What is really happening in Africa? But today's topic, I think we looked earlier, and we're looking at how things falling apart in Africa when you look at how things happen in regards to corruption, democracy, conflicts, economy, governance, and unemployment, and things like that. What is really happening in Africa? And all these things put together, I think, if not properly taken care of, they result into the conflict that we experience in the different countries in Africa. Very sad stories coming from Libya. Of course, all Muslim brothers and sisters across the world, they're starting to mark the holy month of Ramadan today. And Libyan militia leader, Khalifa Haftar, has issued a message urging his forces to step up their offensive against the capital Tripoli hours after the United Nations called for a ceasefire. So what basically the United Nations was telling this Khalifa's camp is, the guns need to, the bullets need to calm down, as it is right now, being the start of the holy month of Ramadan, for some humanitarian truce. And so Khalifa Haftar, in return, just called on his supporters to increase the strength of their assault in Tripoli. So he's really determined, together with his supporters, to take over Tripoli. And of course, the UN-backed government right now seems to be cornered. And it's when you look at the players in this war in Libya, you will be surprised. But anyway, that is Africa for you. So the very innocent souls are dying in Libya, and the numbers are staggering. I don't have the statistics with me here, but I think we looked at them the other day. And very sad news coming from Libya. And since 2011, after the ousting of the president of Libya, then General forgotten his name, but the president of Libya at that time, they've not known, Gaddafi, they've not known peace from 2011 until now. So it's very hard times in Libya. And so we're just praying that they'll find comfort, I don't know, during this holy month of Ramadan. And maybe General Haftar, might try to, decrease his assault. But he said no. He's instead encouraged his supporters to strengthen their assault and keep attacking Tripoli until they take over the capital of Libya. So those are very sad stories there. Nong Chung, you're saying Boeing has admitted that it knew about a problem with its 737 MAX problem. My question is to know why they still sell these planes, especially to our countries. Very good question, but I think as it is right now, not just to our countries, because even in the domestic airlines in America, I think a lot of them were using that plane, the Boeing 737. And I remember after the Ethiopian accident, a lot of them were, they were halted. Even the president came out, President Donald Trump came and said, you know what, any plane, Boeing 737, should not, whatever it is, whatever airport it is, it should not be able to, to work from then on. So I don't know. They're back again, it seems as though, because from what happened on Saturday, they were grounded. And it looks like they're back to work again, because that is what happened on Saturday in Miami, Florida. And interesting, it was in the U.S. The plane skidded off the runway into a river. Thank God, no people, everybody on board was able to be saved. So no life was lost on Saturday. But unfortunately, yesterday, an accident happened during a takeoff at an airport in Russia. The tail end of the flight burnt down, and 41 people got to lose their lives. Very unfortunate incident. Just a few minutes past 7 p.m. last night. So that is the latest coming from that side of the world. And of course, South Sudan, and we talked about it this yesterday during African Showdown. The ruling party and the opposition have agreed. They agreed on Friday to give themselves 6 months for a unity government as part of a peace deal they signed in September, and that is a statement that IGAD put out on Friday. So in Kenya and indeed the rest of African countries and the rest of the world, we are just praying for this peace process in South Sudan, and we are hoping that this time it can be able to hold. And of course, in Rwanda over the weekend, they took the remains of about 85,000 people who were murdered in Rwanda's genocide, and they were laid to rest on Saturday. So these countries that keep inciting war and ethnicity across Africa, things like this coming from Rwanda should be very vital lessons that we should pick and learn from, and make sure it does not repeat in any other African country. 85,000 people, and remember, people died nearly 1 million people died in Rwanda. Most of them, yes, in Rwanda during the genocide. So, and you see some African countries, just playing with wars, just inciting each other, and you wonder, do you not understand what a war can do to a country? And of course, today we are really grateful that Rwanda was able to overcome that very trying time. And of course, over the weekend, they took the remains of 85,000 people, and they were put in 81 white coffins. I think they were just loading them. And then it was buried in a very somber ceremony that happened in Kigali on Saturday. So that is that. And of course, still a stalemate in Sudan, and the Sudanese mediators facilitating talks between the army rulers and protest leaders have proposed the country have 2 transition councils now, with one led by generals overseeing the security, a protest leader said on Sunday. And mediators' apparent proposal comes as talks over forming an overall governing council remain deadlocked, with existing military council and protest leaders offering differing visions. And even after President Omar, you'll think that after President Omar al-Bashir, that was the biggest problem. And now there seems to be locked in a stalemate, the civil society and the military council. So now somebody is proposing they have two different councils. The military council to have their own council to oversee the country's security, which makes sense, and the civilian part to be left and conduct the elections, which also makes sense. But you know, they've remained in a deadlock, so nobody's agreeing to the other side's idea. Remember last week they're fighting on the constitution of the council because the military was saying we will have 8 people and the civilians should have 7 people, and the civilians are like, no, we need to have equal composition in this council. So it's just hardlining positions, and there were even the military tried to get people from the streets in part of Sudan. That was met with a lot of protest on Saturday. Did not work out very well for the military and the police. And the people continue with their sit down in Sudan. So hopefully the mediation and the talks have resumed today, the start of the holy month of Ramadan, and it's not clear if these people will continue sitting and protesting in the sit-ins outside the army headquarters in Khartoum, or they will go and, start observing. As you know, Sudan is largely a Muslim country, or they'll go and start observing. And the holy month of Ramadan, it's not very clear how they will be conducting the sittings in Khartoum and how that will work out for them. So, yes, you're saying the world will make a show by saying that Rwanda shall never happen again, with the phrase never again. Yes, indeed. But you wonder, do some of these countries in Africa really learn from what has happened in countries like Rwanda, from what has happened in countries like, the Democratic Republic of Congo, Central African Republic, Liberia? A lot of bad things happened, civil wars that have really ravaged this country. Somalia, a very good example, just close to us here in Kenya, and how the war has ravaged this. So when you hear some of the warmongers across the continent, you wonder really what's really happening. And of course, in South Africa, they're going to the elections on Wednesday, that is 8th of May, and the main opposition leader, Mmusi Maimane, they held their all the parties held their last rallies over the weekend, and so the opposition leader was telling the South Africans that it is time to give change a chance. And in this regard, he was referring to, let's try another party, because ANC seem to have failed South Africans, especially the younger generation. The message from ANC doesn't seem to resonate very well, because as you can remember, former President Jacob Zuma, together with his leadership during that time he was the president of South Africa, he was engulfed in a scandal after scandal of corruption and his ties to the Gupta family and other things. So it was just a magnet of corruption under his leadership that, of course, forced him out of office. But still, it is believed that corruption is really, it's enshrined in the ANC party. And so the younger generation in South Africa are saying, maybe it's time we give change a chance. And they're responding to the call by the Democratic Alliance leader, that is the main opposition party in South Africa, Mmusi Maimane, to, give change a chance. So it is going to be very interesting. And of course, there's another third force, which is the EFF, the Economic Party by Julius Malema, that also has a lot of support, especially from the younger generation in South Africa. So it's going to be a very tough election, a very closely contested, and I'll come back later with the figures and what to look forward to and what is at stake in South Africa's election this year, and what chances do President Cyril Ramaphosa stand in this year's election. And so South Africa is going to the elections on Wednesday, and the ANC party has been ruling since, the end of apartheid, that is 25 years ago. And South Africans are saying, fine, apartheid might have ended, but our lives have not changed. We had hopes, we had dreams. We were hoping our lives will be different. We were hoping for a different system that will make sure all of us are taken care of. But so far, they're saying there's nothing much to show for, and ANC has not really lived to the promises that it has been promising a lot of South Africans. And things like that is what has resulted to even the recent xenophobia attacks that South Africa, has experienced, especially a lot of hate meted against other African citizens in South Africa. So because there are very tough economic times there, and, after many years of systematic being left out of the system, basically, the South Africans, especially the black, few of them have been able to really and to catch up and do well in that economy. But the majority of the population, especially the young people, still use that as a reason as to why they cannot prosper, they cannot be better. And of course, the segregation did a lot of harm, even in terms of education and accessing some very vital services in the country. They say hampered their growth. But then other non-South Africans go there, other citizens from other countries go there and are able to thrive. So you wonder, is it really the apartheid that, of course, we cannot underscore the effects it had in, South Africans, that generation that was there until today, the systematic segregation and things like that. But when other Africans are able to go there and start businesses and thrive, what really is the disconnect? What is it that these Africans are doing that is so different from what the average South African is doing, and they are unable to do well? So maybe instead of fighting, maybe they could try and just learn from each other, and we just make Africa one prosperous continent. I don't know. Maybe I'm just too optimistic. The African in me. Besong Manfred, you're saying xenophobic acts in South Africa stem from bad political governance. And I will agree with you. Thank you so much, Besong Manfred. And that's why we thought to talk about one of those topics when we're looking at how things falling apart in Africa, and governance being one of the key factors. And let me just read something that I read earlier. And according to the World Bank, governance is the manner in which power is exercised in the management of the country's economic and social resources for development. Basically, a system that works for the people, that makes sure the citizens are taken care of in terms of the economy is thriving and other social structures are actually in place, in short, in a nutshell. So if we should go by the definition of World Bank on what governance is, then and you look at a situation like South Africa and what really has been the dynamics of its governance, and in terms of the country's management of economy and the social resources, then it's really wanting. And I think that is what is sending these young people onto the streets. And of course, that is no excuse, like murdering somebody else because they're not. Murdering is just bad, period. Whether you're killing your fellow countrymen or you're killing outsider, it's just unacceptable. So there's no excuse for that. That's period. But also, it is the bad governance, as Besong you've mentioned, that is really inciting some of these things that you're seeing in some of these tensions and violence that is being witnessed from different countries across Africa. And South Africa has just fallen victim to that. And of course, reeling from years of apartheid and oppression. So it's tough times for, of course, young people, not just in South Africa, but across Africa in a whole. And so the South African election is something that I will be keeping you up to date with, and I will give you the figures and the latest and what is at stake, in our next broadcast. And of course, there has been some war brewing in some parts of Ethiopia, in northern Ethiopia, and reports indicate that heated exchange brewing between two regions in the countries, and that is the Afar and the Somali regions of Ethiopia. There has been some violence that has been experienced in that part of the country that I think our Prime Minister Ahmed Abiy should really address very, very soon before it gets out of hand. And remember, one of his major contributions, or one of his major things that he did, he's been in office for a year now. He celebrated that last month. And one of the things that he's been able to do is end a very long-serving feud between Ethiopia and Eritrea. But also, is it just a few weeks ago, Eritrea closed again the border that was opened after, the peace talks and the countries resuming the normal operations and, trade between the borders and all that. But Eritrea went ahead to close down the border. So there seems to be some other a problem simmering between these two countries. So hopefully they can go back to the drawing table and resume their peace talks and really address some of the issues that they feel were not truly captured, maybe in the first peace talks, I don't know. But that is something that Prime Minister of Ethiopia, Abiy Ahmed, has been celebrated upon, resuming the peace and the bilateral, diplomacy between the two countries, Ethiopia and Eritrea. They are a long time. They've been having a feud for a very long time, but I seem to have solved that, but there seems to be some simmering tension still in some borders in the two countries. That tells us that things are not really working out very well, and maybe the peace deal might have left some things out. So that is something Ethiopia and Eritrea should be able to go back to the drawing table and look at. And of course, we go to Cameroon, where the escalating Anglophone crisis that has paralyzed the northwest and southwest regions of Cameroon this week will come up at the United Nations Security Council on May 13th. And I think this is something that Dr. Matsanga and this station has been advocating for. So finally, the Anglophone in Cameroon, southern Cameroon, they get to have their day in the United Nations Security Council, and that will happen on May 13th. And this follows calls from the European Union Parliament on April 26th for the United Nations Security Council to table the matter for discussions as the situation continues to worsen. So there's been, if you've been watching us, and I'm sure a lot of our viewers, you've been watching us, every time we read the news from southern Cameroon, there's nothing to smile about. We're just reporting deaths. We're just reporting homes being, villages being burnt down, hospitals being burnt down. There's an hospital that was having a bigger population in the Anglophone region that was actually burnt down with people inside that made headlines in the beginning of this year. And I think this also drew a lot of attention in what has been happening in the Anglophone region. And there have been calls, even from the Western world. We've seen UK talk about it. We've seen the French talk about it. The US came out earlier this year and really took a very hard stand towards Paul Biya's government and said, you know what, because of what is happening and the humanitarian crisis that is happening and the killings that is happening in the Anglophone region, what you're going to do is we're going to withdraw our military support to your country and the help that you've been giving to your country until the situation changes. So the US was able to not just talk, but also walk that walk. And of course, French came out, very lukewarmish, and gave also another warning to, Paul Biya's government, but really they did not take a stand in terms of this is what you're doing and this is, we're going to make you responsible, and this is what will, if you don't change, you don't do this, this is the result of what you'll get. So they were just able to give a very empty threat, not really a threat, but just to talk to Cameroon, and that was that. But the US, came out and gave a very stand warning, and outside of that, they were able to withdraw their military support from Paul Biya's government. So I think from that, there has been a push from the international community towards Paul Biya's government and towards, just help for the Anglophone people in the southern Cameroon. And right now, I think now this case has found its way to the United Nations Security Council, and there will be a hearing to it. And the situation in what is happening right now in the Anglophone region in southern Cameroon. So this is a very good development. And this follows, of course, a meeting, a parliamentary meeting in the European Union that happened on May 26th, which also they had an extensive discussion on the situation and the happenings or in what is happening in the southern part of Cameroon, which is the Anglophone region, or if you like it, the Ambazonia. And so we are happy that finally this matter has found its way into the UN Security Council, and we hope that quick steps will be made made and actions will be taken that really will reduce the number of people who are dead, and maybe Paul Biya can be, can be made to allow for a referendum, because that is what the Anglophone really actually want. They don't want to be part of the larger Cameroon. They want to have their own country and have their own way of leadership and rule, because the Cameroon as it is as a whole is not working for them. A lot of systems in Cameroon are in French. A lot of their formal whatever in French. So it seems to sort of segregate the minority from the Anglophone region, and it's just in favor of the Francophone part of Cameroon. And Paul Biya's government has not been able to bring the country together. So years of repression, years of being, denied basic services has advised the want for Anglophone to really want to be their own people and want to take care of their own affairs. So now that this matter has found its way in the United Nations Security Council, we'll just see how that will play out. And of course, we'll be here and we'll be bringing you the latest in what is happening in Anglophone region. But that is very good news there coming from for the Anglophone. And let's wait. May 13th, I think, is not too far. It's just a couple of days away, probably early next week, if I'm not very wrong, or yes, thereabout. And so that will be discussed in the United Nations Security Council, and we'll keep you updated on that matter. Now, there's something I really wanted us to look at, and I saw it making headlines in social media, on Twitter, really over the weekend. Remember, last week on Wednesday was May Day, Labor Day, and something very interesting happened in Burundi. Yes, when you talk about governance and corruption, and now listen. Burundian President Pierre Nkurunziza lauded his 12-year-old daughter and gave her money on May Day, that is the Labor Day ceremony designed to honor the country's top workers. Now, the head of state is said to have given an envelope of money to his daughter Naomi Nkurunziza, who has been behaving well at home. It's good to be a president's daughter. But surely, what a shame. The day that you're supposed to honor people who have made contribution to the economy of the country, you're going to bring your 12-year-old to a national platform because she has been behaving well at home, and reward her with an envelope full of money, a 12-year-old daughter. When did we start rewarding good manners in that regard, in that fashion? You expect a child to be good-mannered, and if not, there should be repercussion for that. So you're going to bring a 12-year-old daughter on a day that is meant to celebrate and to honor workers, not just in Burundi, but across the world. But because your daughter has been behaving very well, you thought this will be the best opportune time to reward her in front of the world. I am just lost for words. As an African, things like this, I don't even know what to make. I don't know. You tell me what you think of that. Do you think that President Nkurunziza went a little too far? I think that was just uncalled for. and Manfred, you're saying we call this, that is, you call it foolishness. It's just unspeakable. How do you bring your 12-year-old daughter to a national platform and reward her for behaving well at home? That is something you and your wife, you do at the, in your home, not at a national platform. I was seeing this making headlines on Twitter, and I thought, this is a joke. People and memes and Twitter and social media sometimes, there's some things you don't. And then I find it on international media platforms, and I said, no. And Nkurunziza did not just do this. Remember, the country is going to an election in I think next year or the other year. And he does not even, Burundi does not have the money to take care of its elections. So the president suggested sometimes last year that there will be like a kitty in schools so that the students all across Burundi would be, getting their lunch money or their pocket money and putting into that, he's calling it election kitty. So you go and and make your contribution because he wants the country to fund its own election, which is impossible. Burundi's economy is not doing very well. And remember, being that he's not in very good terms with even his neighbors in Africa, he is, as it is now, Nkurunziza does not leave Bujumbura. He does not leave the country, period, because he's afraid if he leaves, there will be an attempted coup, on him. There was one in 2015, and I think that made him very paranoid. So since then, he does not leave the country. So when you see things like that, and you hear there's an election kit in schools for the students and everybody else in Burundi to contribute for the next coming elections in Burundi, and then you hear things like this, puts a daughter on a national platform to reward her with an envelope full of money. If this is not, it's even beyond impunity. It's even beyond, I don't know, she needs a candy. Yes, she's 12-year-old. On a national platform. I don't mind rewarding good behavior. Sometimes it's good you encourage a child. But was that even the right platform to do it? Surely. Some of these African leaders, I'm just lost for words. And one of our viewers here, Nong, you're saying, he is showing how idiotic he is and how he has no foresight to lead such a great country as Burundi. There are workers who sleep on an angry stomach. Why? As in why? I know, I read it and I thought, now, this cannot be like for real. And then when I saw it on BBC, I saw it on CNN, I thought, what? He actually did this. Initially, I thought it was a bad joke. People can be funny on social media. But unfortunately, that is what President Pierre Nkurunziza did on Labor Day, that was last week on Wednesday. He took his 12-year-old daughter, put her on a national platform, and while he was rewarding some of the leading workers in Burundi, he said, my daughter has been behaving so well at home, so guess what? I have an envelope full of money, and I'm going to reward her for good behavior. That is ridiculous. That is hands down the most ridiculous thing I've heard so far coming from Africa this year, and I don't know if if there's anything that will beat that, but this is Africa, so anyway, we always outdo ourselves with this level of ridiculousness. And yes, Ombesh Arthur, you're saying that's the sign of lack of democracy in his leadership, I'm telling you, and just poor governance. I don't even know what to call that. Of course, our viewers, a lot of you here has very colorful words. Another Amin in Uganda, yes. Yeah. I know, teacher Tear, it's sad and funny at the same time. Well, this is Africa. I know, like you don't know whether to be mad and be like, did he just do that? It's just unbelievable. But you know what? That is President Nkurunziza for you. That's what he did over May Day. Instead of, rewarding the workers in Burundi, he rewarded his daughter during the Labor Day celebrations by giving her an envelope full of money because this daughter of his, her name is, what is her name? Naomi Nkurunziza, was behaving very well at home. What a privileged little girl. So anyway, I want to thank you so much. And of course, Tanzania, one of the outspoken critic of Tanzania President John Magufuli is missing after being snatched off the road by armed men in the country's far south. The main opposition party, the Chadema party, said on Saturday. Now, the opposition leader's name is Mdude Nyagali. There has been very interesting happenings in Tanzania, and there are worries that President Pombe Magufuli, when he came into power, he was really celebrated, and Tanzanians really embraced his policies, and they're thinking, maybe this is a new dawn, this is a new beginning for Tanzania. But as it has turned out so far, in his over just 2 years leadership in Tanzania, it's not been a bed of roses. There seems to be a shrinkage of the political space, democratic space, a shrinkage of even media space, and even the media freedom in Tanzania is under threat if we were to really speak the truth in what is happening in Tanzania right now. And when you hear things like this happening now, a main outspoken critic of the president was abducted on Saturday by armed men. I mean, this is worrying. And as Africans, we should worry because, Tanzania is one of the countries that we celebrate that has stability, that has, that Africanness of caring and taking care of, of everybody. In Africa, it's a very good example that in terms of peace and stability. So when you hear things like this, it's just just a beginning of something that maybe might not end up very well and may cause a bit of instability in Tanzania. So we hope that does not happen, and we hope that Mdude Nyagali is in good shape and maybe nothing will happen to him, because we don't know, should he be found dead or something happen to him, we don't know the dynamics of what that might cause in Tanzania. All right, Basil Ogechuku, you're saying Nkurunziza exhibited stupidity and total misuse of power. Actually, that is abuse of power. That's the right word for it. And, you know, I'd just put stupid in that. But that is abuse of power. So I want to thank you so much for your company today. Thank you so much. And hopefully we can meet here in our next broadcast, maybe tomorrow, for another edition of Good Morning Africa. But for now, I'm really glad that you could find your time. You could find time to keep me company. And I will see you again tomorrow. My name is Miriam Gutu. It was a pleasure.